You spend 3 months visualizing your dream job. Every morning, you see yourself in that corner office, feel the weight of success, imagine the congratulations. Then the rejection email arrives, and suddenly you're left wondering, did I not believe hard enough? Was my energy off? Did I somehow block my own manifestation? Or is this whole thing just expensive daydreaming? Let's be honest about manifestation. Not dismissive, not cynical, but actually honest. Because here's what's wild. Some of the mechanisms people call manifestation are completely real and backed by decades of research. And some of it is absolutely, demonstrably, not how reality works. The trick is knowing which is which. Start with why this appeals to anyone in the first place. We are terrified of randomness. The idea that most of what happens to us is outside our control keeps people up at night. So we build systems of meaning, religion, ideology, manifestation. These frameworks say, you're not just a leaf in the wind, you're the author of your story. That feels incredible. It transforms dread into purpose, helplessness into agency. Terror management theory suggests this is exactly what humans do when confronted with mortality. We can't control death, so we construct narratives where our actions matter cosmically. And there's something called the illusion of control that makes this even stickier. Psychologist Ellen Langer showed that people genuinely believe they influence random outcomes more than they do. Lottery ticket study. People were more confident about tickets they personally chose versus tickets assigned to them, even though the odds were identical. The act of choosing created the feeling of power. Manifestation does this on steroids. It says you're not just choosing, you're commanding reality. That feeling is intoxicating, even when it's wrong. But let's get to what actually works. Goal-setting research is rock solid. People who set specific, challenging goals massively outperform people who don't. The difference is real and measurable. But here's the nuance. Not all goals are created equal. Self-concordance theory separates autonomous goals, the ones you actually want, from controlled goals, the ones you think you should want. You're way more likely to achieve the first kind and feel good doing it. Manifestation can help clarify this, if you let it. Sitting with what you truly desire versus what looks impressive on Instagram, that's valuable introspection. But manifestation culture often pushes you toward controlled goals disguised as autonomous ones. You convince yourself you want the luxury car and the penthouse because those are what successful manifestors are supposed to want, not because they align with your actual values. Then you either don't get them and feel like a failure, or you do get them and feel empty. Either way, you were chasing the wrong thing. Now, attention. This is where manifestation accidentally stumbles into real neuroscience. Your brain has this filtering system called the reticular activating system. Every second, you're bombarded with sensory information, sights, sounds, sensations, way more than you can consciously process. So your RAS acts as a gatekeeper, deciding what's relevant and what's noise. And relevance is partly survival. Sudden, loud noises grab attention, but also your current goals. When you repeatedly visualize and think about something, you're essentially programming your RAS to flag related information. Suddenly you notice the job posting, overhear the conversation, remember your friend mentioned their company was hiring. The opportunities were always there. You just weren't filtering for them. This is selective attention, not magic, but the effect is real. You become more likely to spot and act on what's already in your environment. The limit? Your brain can only show you what exists. If there are no jobs in your field within 100 miles, if you lack the qualifications every employer requires, attention won't create those opportunities. It just makes sure you don't miss the ones that are actually present. In a world overflowing with information, that matters. But it's not omnipotent. Visualization adds another layer, and this one's fascinating. When you vividly imagine performing an action, your motor cortex lights up in patterns similar to actually doing it. Neuroimaging studies show this clearly. Athletes who mentally rehearse improve their performance. Surgeons who visualize procedures make fewer errors. You're running the neural pathways, strengthening them without moving. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish vivid imagination from reality. Sounds like manifestation proof, right? Except there are massive caveats. Mental practice only works if you already have baseline skill. Visualizing yourself playing Chopin when you've never touched a piano does nothing. You need physical practice first. Also, what you visualize matters enormously. Outcome visualization, seeing yourself with the trophy, feels amazing but doesn't teach execution. Process visualization, imagining the preparation, the setbacks, the problem solving, that's what actually works. And manifestation culture overwhelmingly pushes outcomes. Visualize yourself already successful, already rich, already in the relationship. This creates premature satisfaction. Your brain gets the reward hit and feels less urgency to do the actual work. Positive thinking is where things get really complicated. Optimism has benefits. Optimists report higher well-being, bounce back from setbacks better. But research distinguishes realistic optimism from unrealistic optimism. Realistic optimism is grounded. You believe you can succeed because you have the skills, the plan, the support. Unrealistic optimism ignores evidence. You believe you'll succeed because believing feels better than doubting. Most people have what's called the optimism bias. They think they're less likely than average to get divorced, develop cancer, lose their job. This protects self-esteem but leads to poor preparation, and manifestation often cultivates extreme, unrealistic optimism. Doubt is the enemy. Obstacles are illusions. Just believe hard enough and the universe delivers. This can motivate action, sure, but it can also blind you to legitimate risks and leave you unprepared for entirely predictable problems. Here's something uncomfortable: depressive realism. Some research suggests mildly depressed people are actually more accurate about their control over outcomes than non-depressed people. The non-depressed overestimate their influence, which implies that a degree of illusion might be necessary for mental health. See reality too clearly and you risk despair. But how much illusion helps versus harms? Manifestation doesn't ask. It goes all in on positive illusion, which works until reality intrudes. Social signaling is one mechanism where manifestation has real teeth, though not for mystical reasons. When you project confidence, when you speak and act as though success is inevitable, people respond. Self-fulfilling prophecy research shows this. Teachers told certain students would bloom, saw those students improve more, even though the students were randomly selected. The teacher's expectations shaped their behavior, which shaped outcomes. Same thing happens when you embody confidence about your goals. People offer opportunities, make introductions, take you seriously. Not because your energy is vibrating at success frequency, but because confidence is a social cue that humans respond to. But, crucial caveat, this only works if you're in a context where your confidence will be read as warranted. People with credentials, networks, resources, they can signal confidence and be believed. People without those markers signal the same confidence and get dismissed as delusional. Privilege determines whether your manifestation energy reads as inspiring or absurd. Then there's the sunk cost trap. Once you've invested months in manifestation practices, walking away feels like admitting that time was wasted. So you double down. Effort justification means you value things more when you've worked hard for them, regardless of actual results. And cognitive dissonance means when reality conflicts with your beliefs, you're more likely to reinterpret reality than change the belief. Manifestation didn't fail, you just didn't do it right. You had limiting beliefs, you weren't aligned. The framework becomes impossible to disprove. Success proves it works. Failure also proves it works because you weren't manifestationing correctly. Attribution errors make this worse. When something good happens, you construct a causal story. You manifested it. But outcomes are multiply determined. You got the job because you were qualified, yes, but also because the position opened, other. Candidates withdrew, your interviewer happened to like something on your resume, budget got approved, timing aligned. Dozens of factors interacted. Manifestation attributes all of this to your thoughts, which is wild oversimplification. And hindsight bias seals the deal. After an event, it feels inevitable. You look back and see a clear path from intention to result. But before it happened, the future was genuinely uncertain. You're cherry-picking the chain that fits your narrative and forgetting every time you visualize something and nothing came of it. Memory isn't neutral recording, it's storytelling, and it prefers narratives where you're in control. We have to talk about privilege, because this is where manifestation goes from questionable to potentially harmful. Some people manifest effortlessly. Doors open, opportunities materialize. From their perspective, it's cosmic confirmation. From a structural perspective, it's often that they already had resources, networks, safety nets. Manifestation works better when you have options and access, when you can afford to fail. Social mobility research is unambiguous. Where you start predicts where you end up far more than mindset. Kids born wealthy are vastly more likely to stay wealthy than poor kids are to become wealthy, regardless of effort. Education access, geography, discrimination, these create systematically unequal playing fields. Telling someone facing poverty and systemic barriers to just manifest abundance isn't empowering. It's gaslighting. It reframes structural inequality as personal failure. You're not poor because of the system. You're poor because you didn't think positively enough. That's not just wrong, it's cruel. So, can you actually manifest your dreams? If you mean, can thoughts alter reality through cosmic law? No. Zero credible evidence. But if you mean, can clarifying goals, visualizing processes, directing attention, projecting confidence, and maintaining motivation improve outcomes, then absolutely. Those mechanisms are real. The danger is conflating them. The psychological tools work within constraints. They help you notice opportunities, prepare better, stay resilient, create meaning. But they don't override material conditions, other people's agency, or randomness. Pretending they do sets people up for self-blame when things don't pan out, and obscures the role of luck and privilege when they do. Maybe the real question isn't whether you can manifest, but whether pursuing goals in an intentional, reflective way helps you build a meaningful life within the constraints you actually face. Agency isn't controlling outcomes. It's choosing your responses, your effort, your values, how you interpret what happens. Uncertainty isn't something to manifest away. It's the condition in which all real choice happens. You can work toward goals, stay hopeful, visualize success, and still acknowledge that much is outside your control. That randomness matters. That structures constrain. That's not manifestation failure. That's honesty. And honesty is the foundation for genuine agency. You can't make good choices operating on false premises about how the world works. Strip away the magic and what remains. Attention, motivation, planning, social dynamics, meaning-making, courage to act despite uncertainty. Those tools are real. They're also limited. But they're all we actually have. And if you use them clearly, without the mystical overlay, they might be enough. Not to control reality, but to engage with it skillfully, to navigate uncertainty with intention, to build something meaningful within the constraints of being human in a world that doesn't bend to wishes. That's the honest answer. Not as exciting as cosmic wish fulfillment, maybe, but a lot more useful. Thanks for listening.